Where were they 4 weeks ago? Where were they? Dr. Zuhdi Jasser joins me, founder of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy, former U.S. Navy Lieutenant Commander. He's the author of A Battle for the Soul of Islam, an American Muslim patriot's fight to save his faith, and he has family living in Syria today. Zuhdi, thank you for taking the time and assess for us, please, from your perspective, what is happening now with the massive flow of humanity from Syria to Europe and wanting to make their way to the United States, Canada, Australia, and other Western nations.
Well, thanks for having me. It's great to be with you again. And, when you think this crisis can't get worse, it continues to get worse. And bottom line is that, as we've been saying in 2011, 2012, there's no political solution in Syria. If you want to solve the migration problem that we see now, you have to solve the Syrian problem and end the Assad regime while we decimate ISIS. And I'll tell you, I just talked to family this morning in Damascus and also in Aleppo earlier this week. Do you know that the Assad regime handed out 5 to 7 million passports in the last 2 months? So the bottom line is there's a policy for depopulation of the Sunni population in Syria as Iran is continuing to ship troops in. Now Russia is no longer covertly helping Syria. They're overtly, because they see the Iran deal going through. They see now there's no shame to be had in helping Assad, which is their partner. And for all those who said that, well, we messed up Libya by getting rid of Gaddafi, how many refugees from Libya do we see? Not too many. So cancers that aren't treated early will end up metastasizing, and the metastasis of Assad created ISIS, and now it's creating this refugee problem.
So how do we deal with this refugee problem? As I said, many countries, many political parties, many people who are speaking with what seems to be authoritative voices have only been really paying attention for about 4 weeks, which doesn't put them into the driver's seat as far as an intelligent perspective is concerned, or a knowledgeable perspective is concerned. How do you pragmatically deal with the issue? What has to be done?
Well, I think number one is the narrative, which is it's easy to say we're not going to take any in. There's certainly a security threat. We don't want ISIS hijacking these immigrants and infiltrating the West. However, having said that, the reality is if you look at most of the attacks in the West, they've not been done by refugees. They've been done by homegrown terrorists who are influenced by ISIS. Number two, ISIS wants to stay in Syria. Assadists want to stay in Syria because they're trying to take control and heist that territory. So the bottom line is remember, the narrative, they're coming to the West. They're not going to Saudi Arabia. They're not going to Russia because those are authoritarian regimes no better than Assad. So the bottom line is that I'm not saying we should open the floodgates. We have to be smart about it. But we also need to have a narrative that we are what the Statue of Liberty and what the West has always been, which is the solace for those seeking freedom, and we will help them. But the primary cure, Roy, the primary cure is a no-fly zone for safe areas in Syria to allow the empowerment of the rebels against both ISIS and the Assadists.
We have 2 political parties out of the 3 that have an opportunity to form the federal government. Looking at not participating in, well, definitely the New Democratic Party if they're elected the very next day, they're pulling Canada out of the U.S. Bombing coalition, or the coalition bombing ISIS. What do you say to the political view that we have to get out militarily and we have to do it on day one? What would you say to them?
I would say, please look at the last 4 years. The non-interventionist, isolationist policy in Syria has allowed Russia and Iran to bolster their agent of Assad, to allow him to use with impunity chemical weapons, weapons of mass destruction, and ultimately there will be a time in which the West will have to be involved. So if we don't want boots on the ground, which I'm not calling for, we need to have bombing operations, no-fly zones, because ultimately this cancer is spreading, and it is spreading. The pictures and images of refugees in the tens of thousands and millions coming to the West, what are we going to do with that? If we're going to not be any different than the authoritarians in the world, we need to help them. But it's not just humanitarian. It's a political crisis, come military, come humanitarian crisis. So you have to ratchet back and fix the military problem in Syria, and there's no other solution.
There's very little time to address what's happening now. The numbers are so great, and the refugees and the migrants are just appearing in European countries. There's no time to sit back and wait and say, well, we'll develop a strategy. It has to be dealt with immediately, and then it has to also be dealt with in the long term. What do you see ahead 2-3 years from now? And you have all of these other scenarios now playing out, as you said, in Syria. You've got Iran making their presence felt. You've got the Russians overtly there. You have the U.S.-led bombing mission on ISIS. What do you see 2-3 years down the road?
Well, if we continue the non-interventionist sort of apathetic approach, you are going to see a Shia crescent created through Iraq into Syria. You'll see Russian belligerence increasing as you see them not only increasing their military presence, but actually shipping jihadists into Syria to continue the conflict there. So ultimately, that Shia crescent, as it becomes more bolstered, may start to look for opportunities in which to attack Saudi Arabia, attack Kuwait, other GCC Sunni countries. So this is just the beginning. It's sort of like the late 30s when we saw large immigrants of millions before World War II. Ultimately, that's sort of where we're headed unless we have a strategy that has a short-term military solution, long-term ideological solution to reform against political Islam. Walter Russell Mead had a great piece in the Wall Street Journal. I asked people to read about sort of the bigger picture of what's happening with this migrant crisis this weekend.
What's the role of the Muslim population of North America?
Well, I'll tell you, we have a laboratory in Canada and the United States that they don't have in the Middle East anymore. Yes, they're more motivated to push back against the triangle of evil, which is Shia and Sunni Islamism, and the third point of that triangle is secular dictatorship of Assad and other dictators. We can do the laboratory to create the ideas of liberty and move them forward against political Islam and against secular dictatorship and create organizations that are not just apologists that blame the West, but take ownership for the need today to reform and bring our faith consciousness into modernity, and that needs to start happening yesterday. And unfortunately, a strategy in the West that just says we're going to counter violent extremism doesn't identify the problem, which is countering violent Islamism. The Saudis said they're not going to help. The way they're going to help the refugees is to build 200 mosques in Germany. That's absurd. We need to not build mosques, but build institutions that are about liberalism and reform.
Dr. Zuhdi Jasser, always appreciate you coming on the program. Thank you, Zuhdi.
Anytime, Roy. Thank you.